Hey everybody, it's a mailbag. I've got things coming in over the course of a couple of days, but I'm going to film these things now because I need them, and I'll just keep adding to the end of the video. This one is a power supply, and I bought this for my open source project desk, which is over there, and I'll be showing you guys that soon. This is a Meanwell 12 volt, I believe 29 amp power supply, and I was going to use, I had it over here somewhere, but I was going to use a big old ATX power supply to power the thing, but I decided instead to buy a purpose-built, goodness, child-proof 12 volt power supply. So let's pull this thing out here. When it comes to this kind of thing, Meanwell is kind of the de facto quality brand name one. I mean, it's not top of the line, but Meanwell is, you know, an actual brand name that you would want. This thing is 29 amps, I believe. Yeah, 29 amps, 12 volts. Uses up to 6.8 amps at 120 volts. And let's see what it's got here. So it's got 3 terminals for voltage out, 3 for your negative, a ground, a neutral, and a load. And it does have this little trim pot over here, if I can get it to focus. Come on there. So that little trim pot allows you to adjust the voltage and get it closer to, if you want, say, a car, for it to be like 13.6 or 14 volts, whatever, or just make sure it's dialed into what you want. This thing can accept 115 or 220, 230 in. So not much to say about it. I do have another one of these that my friend Colby gave me. This is a dead one, which looks, I mean, exactly the same. I was under, you can see the capacitors are in some different places and stuff like that. I was under the impression that these things die. There's a particular part or two that die on these things, so I thought maybe I would take this one apart and see if I could figure out what was wrong with it. Especially because I have this other one to act as a reference, so we'll see. The Meanwell's over here, the Landy's over here, and this one is, let's see if it says how many amps. This one is, oh, this one's output 24 volts, 14.6 amps, so they're not the same. So I don't know that I have as much use for a 24 volt power supply, but nice to have it. So we'll see, maybe it'll show up in a teardown video. Let's go ahead and check this thing out real quick and hook it up. First thing I want to do is make sure that the chassis is grounded to the ground pin here. So let's take a look here. The one thing I do wish this meter had, I mean, obviously I can look at it, but I do wish that when you went to resistance, it went to the speaker one first, because I always miss it. So what we're going to do, let's see here. We've got the ground pin here, so we want to make sure. So everything is grounded. That's what we want to see. A lot of the Ender 3s that used this style power supply, the Ender 3s and Ender 5s, weren't grounded. And I don't think that was a problem with the power supply. I think that was the way they hooked it up. I'm going to put a plug on this thing. So I've got, this is an old dishwasher plug that I didn't need. So we're going to double check the polarity. The middle should be, well, it's labeled green, so it should be pretty good there. We do want to check hot versus neutral, so let's get that going again. I should have left this on. So one function gets you there? Yeah. Okay, so the middle one should be ground. Let's check that. Okay. Now when you're looking at this thing like this, the smaller pin, if this was a polarized one, the smaller side of the outlet is hot and the bigger is neutral. And the reason for that is we do have some 2-prong plugs here in the US, and you know, they would want, if this had 2 that were the same size, they would want it to fit in any one. But if the plug itself is polarized and has a bigger size, then you want that to only fit into the neutral side. So we're going to try to figure out which one of these is neutral. So let's look at this here. So right now it's the one on the right. Now obviously I have to be careful not to flip that around, but the one on the right is neutral. And so we're going to have to do a little bit of crisscrossing to get this in. So let's go ahead and get the hot on first. since we know that is this one here. We're going to get the hot one on first, and then we're going to take care of the neutral and the ground. So I've got these spade connectors here, and I've got these Klein ratcheting crimpers. Love these things. You can tell they're covered in sand because I use them in all kinds of weird places, but decent little connection there. Now, one thing not to sleep on is using flathead screws. Now, obviously Robertson and torque and all those things are superior, but when it comes to electrical stuff, if it has a Phillips and a flat option, you 99% of the time want to use the flathead option. If you were to try to use a drill or something like that to tighten this down, you would think you have it tight, and then you'd come back in with a flathead screwdriver and be amazed at how much more torque you could get on there with a flathead versus a Phillips. And that's not something you would necessarily expect, but that is the way it is. And so a lot of electrical things use square and flat, or square and or Phillips and flat, but they most of the time will have a flat option, and that's going to get you a good bit of torque. So we're going to come over here to the ground. Now, I guess since we have the continuity meter out here, let's go ahead and double check that we don't have any connection here between the hot and the chassis. And we don't. Neutral chassis, no, so they didn't join those together. So I feel relatively confident plugging this thing in and seeing what we got. Now again, this is 110 volts on this side, so we want to be careful. And there we go. So let's see what we've got coming out on the Kaiweets. Let's go to voltage. DC, we're auto ranging right now, so let's see what we got. So we're putting out 12.06. That's good enough for my needs. If we wanted to, we could come in here with a little trim pot and adjust this thing. Let's see if I go. I just locked out there. So if I go there, I'm at 14. Wow, it didn't take much of a turn to do that. So, and this is no load, so I'm gonna, once I get a little bit of a load on there, I'm gonna check it again, make sure we're putting out something relatively interesting. So I might go ahead and keep it around 12.5. That does not take much of an adjustment. So we're going to go 12.5 and see how that works. Now I did unplug this. I'm going to go ahead and put these little adapters on here to mount this thing. Seem to fit pretty well. A lot of times people see me using an impact on something like this and feel like it's overkill, and it is. But you know, these things have pretty good modulation. Like you don't have to bury the trigger all the way down. You can definitely snug things up and be pretty precise with it. I use these things for drywall all the time, and if you're a little much, you'd blow right through the drywall, but you know, you get the right bit on there and you modulate it, get one click, and you're good to go. There you have it. So I'm gonna go hook this thing up, and you'll see it in a later video. Next up, we have something that is part of an ill-fated project that will not be on the channel, but I'm gonna open it up anyway. So a lot of you may be familiar with the PS2 connector, which is the same connector for keyboards and mice. I think they came out in some of the 286s and 386s, but for the most part, you'd see them around 486s. Before that, there was the AT style that looked a lot like a MIDI connector. And I don't keep any AT style keyboards around, at least at the moment, and I was buying a 386. I was actually able to find my first computer, not the exact chassis, but the exact make and model of my first 386 computer, and I bought it off of eBay. But the thing came in, just nothing worked. The RAM didn't work, the motherboard was jacked up, the power supply was jacked up, the floppy drives were jacked up, and so I just decided that was going back to eBay. Even took a little bit of a loss on shipping, but I thought, yeah, it's not bad to have this adapter around so I can plug a PS2 keyboard into an older computer should one happen to come across my desk. Next up, we have a package that is not in good shape at all. So I'm just gonna rip it open, and I'm gonna hope that everything is in here. So I have a, what I would guess is about a 16U rack on the side of my desk over here, but I had repurposed the rack rails from something else, and they had just been cross-threaded and just completely messed up. And you know, there were screws broken in some of them and all that. So I just decided that I was going to bite the bullet and replace them with a brand new set of racks. And these weren't very expensive. They were like 20 bucks, and it came with brand new screws, and I think they're washer headed, you know, bigger headed screws, and the 2 new rack rails. So I decided that I'm going to just replace them and put that in there. I don't know that I'll make a video about it. I don't know that it'll be that exciting, but I've got a computer that I'm pretty excited to have down there in that rack, and I've got some power supplies and some drawers and stuff like that. So I've got these rack mount things, and these came from eBay. They're Nave Point, and this was a deal. I mean, I feel like I looked them up on Amazon. They were going to take a lot longer to ship here, but these got here in like 4 days with the screws and all that stuff. So I thought that was kind of nice. So if you don't want to go out and buy an expensive rack, you can just take a couple 2x4s and put your own together. Next up, we have one that I had to pull out of the Amazon box because it was part of my most expensive Amazon order of the year. And it was raining out, and the delivery driver stuck it in the actual rain on my covered porch. So like, they could have stuck it basically anywhere except where they did. So it was just really stupid. So I haven't taken a look at it yet, though. It is it's a Bucket Boss tool roll. Now, I have these, I've got some miscellaneous wrenches. I have one organized set of non-ratcheting wrenches, but I have all these wrenches that I bought. You know, I don't buy a lot of Husky tools, but for my uses, that just seemed like about the right deal. I got these after Christmas. There was like a few left at a Home Depot, and so I got a set of 30 of them for 25 bucks. So I definitely can't complain about that. I've got this whole set here of them, but they've been sitting in this tub, and I want them organized. As you can see, they're all covered in dead tree carcass and all that. So I'm a big believer of being able to grab a set of tools at once. I've got an electrical box, I've got a plumbing box, I've got my socket box, and I like to just be able to know what they are from a distance, and pick them up and go. And so I sort of thought that something like this would be good. Now, I originally thought I would get one of those wrench rolls where they're all laid out nice and neat, but ultimately I wasn't sure that any of them were gonna fit my style, because I have stubby ones, I have regular ones, and it just didn't look like any of them were gonna fit my style wrenches. So what I thought I'm gonna do is I'm going to break these up into metric and standard, because that's pretty much all the organization I need for these things. And then I'll have a few other places that I could stick some other tools. So I'm gonna just stick these things in as is. I'll clean them up a little bit, and then I might stick a few other oddball tools that don't really go in any of my other toolboxes, so that when I'm renovating this house that I'm getting ready to do, or you know, any of those kind of things, I can take this wrench set and go. So this is the Bucket Boss Super Roll zippered tool roll, and pretty good reviews on Amazon. So I'm pretty happy with the quality overall. The material feels decent, you know, a couple of threads here and there, but overall it feels good. You know, branded zippers and all that kind of stuff, and like 80-some% 5-star rating on Amazon. So I feel pretty good about it. So I'm sure this thing will evolve over time, but this is what I decided to keep in here. I'll probably actually wind up keeping this in my truck. I've got a couple zip ties, tape measure, utility knife, and a 6-in-1 screwdriver. Again, might add a few other things in there, but got that. Then I've got my standard wrenches, America first. Just kidding, I like using metric better. Got the metric wrenches. Got stubby wrenches, which may get combined with this one here. These are all of my really tiny and weird thin wrenches and things like that that just don't fit in my other holders. And then I've got a few miscellaneous tools down here. I've got a decent pair of wire strippers, pair of Lyman pliers, little needle nose. These primarily for the crimping side. I've got a pair of vice grips and another little knife. So anyway, this is just what I'm starting with in this thing. I'm sure it'll evolve over time, but I'm gonna roll this bad boy up. And one of the things I like about it being rolled up is that it's not going to rattle around as much because everything is in cloth. So let's see here, probably have to adjust these straps. tight. And there you go, the tool roll. Next up, we've got another one from Amazon that was out in the rain, but luckily this one was covered in plastic, so it doesn't feel as rain soaked. Although there is water. Let me get this out. So I bought these for my little station over there, my open source project desk, and the problem is that I've got a computer on top and I want to be able to have USB ports in some kind of nice looking form factor, and they don't have really very many square USB ports, and I looked for USB grommets and things like that, and a lot of those had bad reviews. But what I like about these is each one has its own full cable. Now these are 3 feet, and that's pretty important because most of the reviews on the 6-foot ones were pretty bad. So what I got was this powered USB hub, so I can run the powered USB hub from the computer and then plug these things inside the desk in here. So I'll have, we've got power here and we should have decent USB connectivity. We're not really outside the range there. There is one extra charging port here that I could use to power an Arduino or something like that. I'm going to do a separate video on this, but I do want to share one of the things. I love this style port for one particular maker use. Now, I am going to spoil my own video, but if you've ever tried to program any of the AT Tiny boards, or for instance, I had a board that was emulating a keyboard output, and the keyboard was messing up the computer when I was trying to program it. I love that instead of trying to fumble and plug in a USB cable real quickly, I can keep the port turned off, and then just as the thing's about to upload, I can push the button, turn the port on, and it makes uploading so much easier. It's so, if you have a bunch of stuff connected to an Arduino, trying to plug in a USB port real quick, or USB cord real quick, just stinks. This is an awesome thing for makers. So even if you have no desire to have extended USB ports, I want to encourage you to look at getting one of these ports for programming, because again, you can keep the device off until just the exact time, turn the port on, and it's way better than trying to hit a reset button or trying to plug the device in on time. And last up, we have these Inkzol markers by Milwaukee, and Milwaukee's the one that owns the trademark on Sawzall, and so this is kind of a take on Sawzall. And don't turn this off, because I've got some things you need to know about these things. For 20 years, I've had Sharpies in my toolbox, and Sharpies everywhere around my office, every kind of Sharpie you could imagine. And I like Sharpie markers. They're great, they're the go-to and all that kind of stuff. But I use them a lot in the construction industry, and I didn't realize what I was missing until I found out about these things. If you use a Sharpie marker in a dirty environment, they clog really easily. And so you'll be writing on wood, you'll be writing on tile, you'll be writing on something like that, and the marker will clog. And so, when you're in, maybe not this much, but you're in here doing construction and you're writing in like that, and then you come in here with this, and it just writes better, it writes sharper in dirty environments. The other thing that's interesting about these things is the tips don't push down the same way the Sharpie ones do. These things round off and get real wide, but this you can get a nice fine line on. The other thing they say about these things is that you can leave the cap off for 72 hours and it won't dry out. It also has this lanyard holder up top, and this thing on there so it doesn't roll over, which a Sharpie will do also. But it's got features that are sort of construction related. This is supposed to be a hard hat clip, like it's the right width for clipping on a hard hat. And so, for everyday use, Sharpies are great. But these things at Home Depot, about $1 a piece. So it's not like they're outrageously priced, and they're just really quality construction markers that are just a lot better for doing the types of things that you do in the construction industry. And so These are the Milwaukee Inksaw, and I think you owe it to yourself if you do this kind of stuff to get, you know, a 2-pack or a 14-pack or something of them. So that's all I got. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.